Hello there! Today I'm tackling this orchid and butterfly using coloured pencils. I really enjoy this piece because of its delicate details and vibrant colours. So let's get started. First, I've divided the page into 4 sections. Make sure you're using the smooth side of your watercolour paper. I printed out my reference image, and while sketching, I find it helpful to take a few measurements between each flower to ensure everything is placed properly. Start by lightly drawing an outline of the orchid and butterfly. If you're working along with me but want to skip drawing by hand, you can grab our reference image from the website and trace it onto your paper. I like to begin with the larger pieces and then add in the smaller details. Once everything is sketched out, use an eraser to gently remove any guidelines from the background. Be careful with this step as you don't want to damage the paper. I've also added a few extra details to the butterfly off camera. For this wash, I'm mixing a light grey with lamp black, phthalo blue and cadmium red. I'm testing this colour on a scrap piece of paper to get the tone right. If you need a cooler grey, just add more phthalo blue. Stay inspired and don't miss a video from us. Subscribe and leave a comment below with what you'd like us to create next. We'd love to hear from you. Before painting, take a second to double check your outline and make sure everything looks good. For the background, I'm using a wide, soft Taklon brush. Be sure to avoid painting over the flowers. We want to keep the white of the paper for the orchid, but you can paint over the butterfly outline. For smaller areas, switch to a smaller brush. I also like to drag a dry brush across the background to add some texture and keep it from looking too flat. While the paint is still wet, take the opportunity to smooth out any hard edges. Have you ever tried using watercolour paper for a coloured pencil piece? I find it durable with a lovely natural tooth. I'd love to hear what your go-to paper is. If so, leave a comment below. Once the background is done, let it dry completely. I've taped my paper down to prevent it from shifting while I work. Now you can go ahead and erase the outline from the first few buds. Now it's time to add colour. I'm starting with the lemon yellow from our 72-piece coloured pencil set for the butterfly's wings. Our premium colour pencils come in a set with this lovely wooden box. They are great for layering and their waxy cores really help to build tones. Next, I'm using black to fill in the darkest areas of the wings. If you're using the reference image from our website, follow along to see where each colour goes. To warm up the butterfly, I'm laying terracotta over parts of the yellow. It adds some nice warmth and depth. If you're into projects like this one, subscribe to our Creative Connection. You get heaps of inspo, ideas, tips and tricks delivered directly to your inbox, and they're all for free. Here's a quick tip. If your hand is resting over the artwork, use a spare sheet of paper to cover the rest of the page to avoid any smudging. I continue shading the body and the wings with black and adding terracotta to the antenna. It's always good to keep a sharpener handy, especially for detailed work. Once the butterfly is done, let's move on to the greenery. Test colours on a scrap piece of paper before applying them to the drawing. For my piece, I'm using olive as a base green, and for the leaves and buds, keep the top of the buds lighter and make the colour on the bottom darker and denser. I'm also adding a bit of terracotta and neutral grey for shading. Pay attention to your highlights, midtones and shadows as you shade the other 2 buds. For the darkest areas, I'm using black, especially underneath the buds. To get that beautiful purple of a moth orchid flower, I'm laying carmine and cornflower blue. The petals have a subtle yellow tint, which I'm adding with pale yellow. I then layer dusty rose over the cornflower blue to deepen the purple tones, and I add a little pink to bring out the softer shades. For the veins on the petals, I'm using dusty rose to draw fine lines. This is one of those moments where you need to trust the process. Just don't make the lines too thick and everything will come together. I'm not aiming for hyperrealism here. I just want to create a realistic effect by layering the coloured pencils. Moving on to the next flower, start with pale yellow. For the brightest yellow sections, layer in lemon yellow. Then add pink. To deepen the purple areas, I add dusty rose followed by crimson and cornflower blue. I use an electric eraser to bring back the highlights. For the lips of the orchid, I use dusty rose again and erase for highlights. When adding veins and dots to each petal, make sure to use the fine point of the pencil so the details are sharp and delicate. Have you created one of our projects? Make sure you send us a photo. We love seeing your creations. For the third, fourth and fifth flowers, I follow the same routine. Start with a yellow shade, then layer pink, followed by purple, and add your blue and red mix for depth, and finish with the shadows. As I work through these flowers, I occasionally go back and deepen areas with dusty rose, burnt umber or raw umber. You might find yourself adjusting areas as you go along, and that's perfectly normal, just part of the process. This is a good spot to pause the video and continue working through the next few flowers at your own pace. Looking at the reference image, I realised I missed some green tones in the petals, so I'm going back in and adding them with olive. Olive is a great choice in botanical art because it looks natural, whereas some of the other greens can look a bit artificial. Now to finish the stem. I start with olive on the shadowed side of the stem. Then I add burnt umber to deepen the underside of the stem and buds. To finish, I use forest green to build up the green tones. Now I'm going to take a quick break and make a cup of tea and step away from a bit. When I come back, I'll make my final adjustments. And voila! You've got your completed orchid and butterfly in coloured pencil. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed either watching us create the piece or following along and creating your own. Stay tuned as we've got more great projects coming your way, and we'll see you in the next one.